Welcome to the Gospel According to podcast, the first and still only podcast looking at the intersection of pop culture and the Christian faith. I'm Dan Ulrich, joined as always by my co-host. Yes, he's a pirate. 200 years too late. Cannons don't thunder. There's nothing to plunder. He's an over 40 victim of fate. It's Dave Hallahan.
Well, I take offense. I'm not over 40. The rest of it is probably fine, I guess. I can deal with that.
You're a pirate.
It is
200 years
Yeah.
too late.
It is me, Dave Hallahan. But what does that have to do with Warren Buffett?
Oh, no. We're doing Jimmy Buffett today.
Oh, I have prepared I'm ready to talk about Berkshire Hathaway, but
Because that's funny because you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Warren Buffett also sported these little-known fact.
Okay. Oh, how about this one? I'm Dan Ulrich, joined as always by my co-host. He's still looking for his large shaker of salt. That's Dave Hallahan. A little better?
Yeah, a little better. I know that reference a little bit better.
Today we are doing the gospel according to Jimmy Buffett, the singer-songwriter who passed away at the beginning of September. He drew millions of fans with his music, folksy tales of living, loving tropical sandy beaches, frozen concoctions, and he passed away. So we send out prayers to his family. And this podcast, we're just going to look at the whole following that he created and this whole genre of kind of living that he made, and seeing where we can find gospel in that time, in that theme with that. Dave, are you a parrot head?
I am not a parrot head. I'm assuming that is what like a deadhead, like a Grateful Dead followers are deadheads. Followers of Jimmy Buffett were parrot heads. I'm not. My Jimmy Buffett knowledge is like outside of the kind of the way that he was just in pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am not a parrot head. I know very little. But how about you? Like, you live in a shore town now? Is it like part of the thing is you have to know Jimmy Buffett?
That is not part of the thing, but I have, I'd say within the last 3 years, especially summertime, we'll, you know, ask Alexa to put on some of Jimmy Buffett songs, get in the mood, escape the doldrums of life, and head out to sandy beaches between my toes. Can you name any Jimmy Buffett songs, Dave Hallahan?
Okay, well, there's Margaritaville,
Correct.
Cheeseburger in Paradise.
That's 2.
I think that's all that I've got.
Well, that's a start.
It is.
Speaking of Margaritaville, he was also Jimmy Buffett was a restaurateur, and created this massive empire around this way of thinking, a living. Have you ever been to Margaritaville?
I have never been to a Margaritaville at all. I've had a margarita.
Well, it's just not a place; it's a way of living and
Well,
thinking.
yes, I agree, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but keep that thought in mind. Have you been to a Margaritaville, Dan?
I don't know.
I feel like the answer is no.
I feel like maybe. I've definitely seen them. Do you know how many there are in the US and Canada? How many Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville? There are some hotels as well.
Okay.
How many would you guess there exists?
37.
There are 22 of them.
Oh, okay. I wasn't that far off.
No. YouTuber Eddie Burbank recently went on a road trip to all of them.
Okay.
And so for 24 days, him and this other YouTuber went on a road trip to visit, eat at, drink at every Margaritaville in the US and Canada on a 24-day trip, stayed in some of the hotels and gave their reviews and lived that life. So it's a fun video. You can check it out.
22 locations in
Correct.
24 days, and alcohol was involved.
Yeah, I think they had a margarita in every one.
Interesting.
And lots of
one margarita a day like you're fine to drive. Like that's not going to mess anybody up. But I just feel like maybe not the best road trip idea.
And I mean, let's be honest, chain restaurants, not the best food,
Right.
and not the healthiest food to be eating for
Correct.
3 weeks
Correct.
straight.
Yes. Yeah.
So there are some hijinks involved in that. This is actually his second doing this. Can you guess what the other restaurant that he went to? All
Oh,
of.
restaurant.
Yes.
Um, because I was gonna guess Yogi Bear campgrounds,
Oh,
but uh somebody should do that. Make a YouTube video and we'll talk about it. Um, another restaurant, all the Waffle Houses.
I think there would be too many of them. First went to every rainforest cafe
Okay.
in the US,
Yeah.
and,
How many
so
of those are there? Do you know?
there's like 18. So there
Okay.
was less, but it was still like a 3 week drive. Because
Yeah.
a lot of these places, they exist in the same,
Hmm.
areas. Mall of America, or, Orlando, the Atlantic cities, the Las Vegas, those type of places is where you are finding, these very big themed,
Right.
restaurants that have, volcanoes in them and, animatronic gorillas and things like that.
That does I would could imagine that being a fun trip. I've already shown that I know little about Jimmy Buffett, but I can get behind why that would be a fun trip for somebody.
Yeah. I mean, without responsibilities and, family to deal with and a job, uh, taking a road trip and experiencing.
So it's the job and the responsibilities that make me think that would be a fun trip.
Well, yeah. Well, that kind of leads us
Yes,
into
yes.
where we're heading here, Dave.
Yeah.
Uh, the summertime, we had our summer, the Gospel According to podcast. We were talking about ice cream. We talked about the beach. We talked about mission trips, summer camps. And in this vein, every time the idea of summer, the idea of beach was brought up, have been heckled. Parrot heads have been out in number, following us around. I can't wear this shirt without being asked this question. And so it is about time that we come here on this podcast, because to be honest with you, there's no other podcast that can do it.
No,
Uh,
it's true.
the first and only podcast that is brave enough, creative enough to go out and answer these questions, the intersection of these things in pop culture and our Christian faith. So, Dave, let's get this out of the way for the
Yes.
parrot heads, for those wondering, for those, um, that have been spending time trying to read their Bibles in Margaritaville. What is the gospel according to Jimmy Buffett?
Okay, I think that I have shown that I'm not necessarily the most qualified person to answer this. That there are
I wish
probably
there was another way, Dave.
I know,
I
but
wish
like you
there was
said,
somebody else
we
to ask.
there isn't. Um, we'll see what you have to say. But when you mentioned earlier that Margaritaville isn't really a destination, a place, it's a state of mind.
Mhm.
That is what kind of comes to mind when I think of Jimmy Buffett and like kind of the mindset of parrot heads that I am making some assumptions about. That kind of like it's 5 o'clock somewhere idea. Um, I think I think there are some there's certainly like a razor's edge where you could fall off into things that maybe aren't so healthy and indulging some fleshly desires, if you will. But I think the general idea can be a good one of living life to its fullest, living life for enjoyment, enjoying where you are. Kind of, this is Corona, not a sponsor, not Jimmy Buffett, but like their motto or whatever was like life's a beach or everywhere's a beach or something like that. Like I think bringing that mentality to a life that is full of a lot of monotonies, of a lot of routines, of waking up and going to work, whatever, dealing with your raising your kids, dealing with their problems and taking them everywhere that they need to go can feel overwhelming. But I think in the midst of those things, finding enjoyment and joy and having that like carefree attitude. I think that is aspirational. That is worth chasing after. Um, Maybe making like the primary vision of that not being a margarita, but maybe like living in the rest that Jesus gives us. Maybe that is like a better thing, but I think he's on to something, that there is a rest that is promised us. There is enjoyment in this life to be found. And I think Jimmy Buffett was one catalyst for a lot of people to find that type of enjoyment.
Wasted away again in the kingdom of heaven here on earth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's this kind of tension. We did the gospel according to grind culture,
Yes, yes, yes.
uh,
Hustle culture.
hustle culture. So there's that one side of it, of hustle culture, where it's saying you need to, work, hustle, rise and grind, wake up in the morning at 6 a.m., go to the gym, make it to work. If you're not working 12 hours a day, you're not trying hard enough. If you don't get the newest car, if you don't have the best clothes, then it's because you're not trying hard enough. And the way that you can honor God is to hustle and to grind. And so, on the one side of it, is like, obviously that has gone too far. Uh, but we can swing to the other side of it and have maybe it go too far where, yeah, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, that it's just about taking it easy, it's just about partying. So there's this tension between these extremes that in most things, that the gospel talks about, is there's these extremes of like just caring about work, just caring about money, rise and grind, hustle. That's too far on this side. But then just caring about partying, just caring about relaxing, and maybe even the hedonism that can come with drinking culture and vacationing, party culture, that's there on the other side. And so finding rest, like Dave said, going against capitalism and the love of work and idolizing that, but it not morphing into excess.
Yeah, I think we live in a culture where we probably are more in the mode. I feel like the hustle culture is more primary, but then I think whenever there is like something that we see that's wrong, our gut instinct can be like the equal opposite reaction, um, which would be just like that total life of leisure and
Mhm.
letting go of responsibility and giving into our whatever desires we might have that we think will bring us joy. But we are to live a disciplined life. But I do think through the kind of this parrot head mentality, if you will, that it can be a good reminder, a healthy reminder that we are also called to enjoy life, and there's plenty of life to be enjoyed.
Yeah, the Jesus saying, "I've come that you'd have life and you'd have it more abundantly, that you would live it to the full." And so, what does that mean for us? And Jimmy Buffett, obviously, with the 22 restaurants, hotels, following platinum albums, tapped into something that we're yearning for, people's longing for simplicity, longing to take a break from regular life, longing to find uh, this kind of escapism from the world that we feel like we've been dealt. And so the question as Christians for us, and for you, Dave, right now, is when
Oh,
should we rest? When should we work? How do we find that balance?
yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be highly subjective to your own personal circumstances and all of that. But I think one like good thing to keep in mind is that God will never ask you to sacrifice your spiritual health for something else. And so, we as as a husband and a father, like I am called to care for my family, to help provide for my family. But I can do that at the expense of my own spiritual health. I know when Lee and I first got married, she was teaching at a school where it was really rough, and the kids were rough, the administration wasn't very supportive, the parents were rough, so it was kind of like on all sides. It was a difficult situation, and I she was there for 5 years, and like the first 2.5 years I was like, you got this, babe, like God's got something in this for you, like, go get him. And then I was like, okay. I spent the next 2.5 years saying, call out today and don't ever go back. Like, just quit. Like, you can't do this. And for me, one of the shifts where I realized, okay, this is spiritually detrimental. When Lee and I first met, or at least when we first started dating, we were both. I think at that point I was the youth pastor at a church, and she wasn't getting paid, but she was like the primary youth worker at her church, and she loved working with kids. And she was teaching middle school, and she was like, I'm done with youth group, like I just can't, I hate being around kids. And I'm like, yeah, like that's not you. Like God has made you to be someone who loves being around kids and loves ministering to them, but this job is like sucking that out of you, and so it is spiritually detrimental for you to keep doing this job. So I think that is like, maybe an extreme case, but I think it's an important line to keep in mind, and to remember that God would never ask you to sacrifice your spiritual health for anything else. Now, you have to be wise about how you apply that, right? You could be like, well, I don't like this job, and so it's making me mad, and I keep cursing out my coworkers and my boss, and so that's spiritually unhealthy. I need to quit. Maybe, or maybe like you just need to grow a little bit in maturity and in discipline and in patience. But you have to work that out between you and the spirit.
Yeah, and there's that why we do life in community is that you would have those people next to you to help you sort that out, to be praying for you, to see if it's okay. I'm in this season. I need to see how I can exemplify Christ in it and not
Hmm.
just quit and not just leave, but then also view it when it is time to leave. And so you referenced "It's 5 o'clock somewhere." This was an Alan Jackson song that Jimmy Buffett appeared on, and then
Mm.
he kind of adopted it as his own song, playing it at his own concert. And so there was this article that New York Times author Taffy Broadesser Ackner
Hmm.
said.
Yep.
So take away,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Yeah.
subscribed
Sure.
to
Of
them.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so their quote was, "Take away the jaunty island beat, and you'll find a song about a man who is so miserable that he can't bring himself to return to work from his lunch break." And so here, I think this is kind of the false gospel of uh, this beach island way of living, is that uh, even that it's people are singing this song, "It's 5 o'clock somewhere," like, as this ballad of, "This is what I want life to be," but in reality, there's a hollowness, to it. It's not a happy song.
Right.
It's an anthem that, is a license to drink, and that, um and to just escape, the world, but there really isn't and won't be found true fulfillment in this way of life apart from Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point. And it brings to mind for me, I think we're kind of all on this pursuit, and hopefully as Christians, like Christ is at the center of it for us. But I think even, many who don't belong to the Christian faith or any faith at all are like trying to like get to like peace or joy, or like to be happy with their life. But I think the trap that we all fall in is assuming like, if I could just have this kind of life,
Mm,
then I would be happy. But I think the trick is like to be happy. And like, because if you're miserable now, you will be miserable somewhere else. Like, we probably all have those people in our lives, and if you don't, you're that person in someone else's life, who complains about everything all of the time. Like, that person will just never be happy. It's, if all the things they complained about tomorrow switched, they would find new things to complain about, because that's something that's actually internal. It expresses itself as pointing to external problems, but it's an internal problem. And so I think, that it's 5 o'clock somewhere mentality isn't like isn't simply work is hard, life is hard, and I need to relax. It's I'm not happy with myself. I'm not happy with the way that things are. And there's plenty of ways to deal with that, healthy and unhealthy. And certainly there are times where like circumstances need to change and you should change them. But also there's a lot of internal work that can be done through uh, talking to a therapist, through just connecting yourself with a group of people who are like-minded and chasing after Christ, and being allowing yourself to be discipled in that way. But yeah, the solution isn't certainly isn't at the end of a bottle, but the solution isn't just in this kind of like utopian lifestyle where all I have to do is like sit on the beach all day and drink margaritas. If if you can't find joy apart from that, you actually won't find joy in that either.
Right. And that's the whole premise of Paul talking about I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
Right, right.
Is not that I can overcome everything or things like that. Is like the verse before, I found the secret of contentment. And the secret of contentment isn't uh margaritas. He basically, to paraphrase him, he says, I know what it's like to live in Margaritaville, and I know what it's like to work a dead end job,
Mhm.
but I found the secret of contentment, that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And
Yeah.
so whether we're pursuing, so many times we're pursuing those things in life that aren't life-giving because they're apart from Christ, and that we idolize that way of thinking or living. If I can just get the next phone, if I can just get a new car, if once I move in the new house, then I'm going to feel content. And once I get unpacked in my new house, I'll be content. Once we do this renovation, I'll be content. Once we buy this next bigger house now, and if the contentment is found in the things on this earth, you're never going to be satisfied,
Right.
because that's not where satisfaction comes from. That we are created by a creator that made us to be in relationship with him. And apart from our creator, apart from relationship with our creator, we're always going to be looking for our lost shaker of salt. There's never going to be, you know, Margaritaville as in heaven. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to be fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good stuff.
Dave, you want to play a game?
Of course I do. Is it a drinking game?
Yeah. Do you have your margaritas handy that I
I'm
sent
ready.
you over?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So actually, in doing research for this episode, there have been many sermon titles out there, many
Okay.
sermon series that are the gospel according to Jimmy Buffett.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Not podcasts, as we know.
Right, because this is the first and the only.
They don't exist, but as
Right.
sermons in
Mhm.
churches, sermon series. And so we're going to see if you can do what these other preachers did,
Oh.
and see, will it preach Jimmy Buffett edition?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So these words appear in a Jimmy Buffett song, but for a sermon, do they belong?
Nice. Well done. Well done.
All right. So I'm going to give you a lyric from a Jimmy Buffett song, and
Okay.
you're going to tell me, will it preach, and where would it preach, and how would it
Mhm.
preach, and how are you tying this back in to the Bible?
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So first one, this is from the song Margaritaville,
Okay.
one of the ones that you were
Heard
familiar with.
heard of it.
Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it's my own damn fault.
Mm. Can I put an explicit label on this for you now? So, um, okay, yes, this will preach, and I mean, I think this is going to Genesis 3, and maybe even like a Romans 5, I want to say, is where Paul talks about how sin entered the world through one man and through one man. Um, so you've got a lot, but like uh, maybe just an original sin kind
Mhm.
of passage, whichever whichever passages you want to choose from. But yeah, I think we want to blame uh, someone else. Like we all want to do that. We see that in Genesis 3 where, God says to Adam, like, did you really do this? And he's like, well, it's the woman that you gave me. And she's like, well, it's the serpent that's over here. And the serpent, well, I don't know what he said or who he blamed, but
He said,
yes. But like that from the first sin, like we have just wanted to shift blame. And certainly women in some Christian circles have gotten a bad rap. And there are some who would go so far as to say, like, it is Eve's fault. And that's why men should lead or whatever kind of things they come up with. But I
she
think
has a Jezebel spirit to her.
yes, but I think whether you specifically want to talk about Eve or even just that impulse that we all have to shift blame, I think that this will preach.
Yeah. Some people think that there's a woman to blame, but we have to know that it's our own fault, you know?
Yes, we
That
do.
even if Eve didn't sin, we would have like
Right.
sin entered the world in that way, but the
Yes.
the same motivations that was behind her and Adam to lie,
Yeah.
um, that we have that in us apart
Yep.
from that original sin.
I haven't taught any of my 3 girls to lie, but they've all figured it out.
Right.
Like that is just something that is natural to us.
Yes. All right. This next one comes from the song Changes in Latitudes,
Okay.
Changes in Attitudes. And the lyric goes, it's those changes in latitudes, changes in attitudes, nothing remains quite the same.
Yes. This will preach, and I'm talking about Moses and him on the mountaintop and
Ooh.
then coming down. Um, and and then you can also talk about like the that kind of Christianese idea of mountaintop experiences,
Hmm.
um, and how they can be life changing, but we have to actually allow them to change us. It can't just be a mountaintop and then we're down and it's a change of latitude. It also has to be a change of attitude so that it can propel us forward and not just be something we remember fondly, but something that actually impacts the way that we live going forward.
Yeah, this would be kind of a good end of a missions trip, end of a retreat, end of a camp message that, we've been on the mountaintop. There's a change, but there's going to become this change in latitudes,
Hmm.
and nothing remains quite the same. That this change in you is going to have to manifest itself. You're going back to a place where maybe your problem still persists there, but
Yeah.
how are you going to remain uh, different, remain the
Yeah.
same?
If you really want to tie it in, you can go to High Point Camp in Geigertown, PA, not a sponsor. Um, and you're at High Point, and then
Mm.
you're going to change latitude.
You're going to go to a low point
Yes.
because that's the
But
high point. So everything else.
that is the highest, yeah, little known fact, highest point in the continental US. That's not true. That's not true.
All right. So we referenced 5 o'clock somewhere, which was not a Jimmy Buffett song, but a Jimmy Buffett way of thinking.
Yes.
Um, says it's only 12:30, but I don't care. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Will it preach is the question.
But I don't care. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
I mean, I think you can use this in a sermon, but I think, like we've discussed today, I think it's probably, I would probably be more apt to use it as like, we don't necessarily want this way of thinking. We want to be able, maybe like on a message on like perseverance. And it's, what is the line? It's 12:15.
12:30.
12:30. Whew, good. I thought I had 15 more minutes, but we're getting closer. But we want to be able to stick it out. We want to be able to make it to 5 o'clock before we are, waving the white flag or, putting off responsibilities. We want to persevere through the hardships.
Right. I think you could use this as I mean, I think his timing's off because if it's 12:30, then somewhere else it's not 5 o'clock. It would be 5:30 somewhere.
Right, right.
Um,
It's the
but
5 o'clock
maybe
hour somewhere. Didn't have the same ring to it.
but maybe thinking about it as the universal church, um, like,
Mm, mm.
I live in America here, I worship God here, but in Asia, it's a different time zone, but they're worshiping the same God, there as I am, um, that we can be praying for other people, or maybe, if we've seen, God, work through somebody else. I've seen what you've done for this person, and I believe that you'll want to do the same thing for me. I've
Mhm.
seen somebody else being broken from the chains of addiction, and I know that same spirit, that same love that you have for me. That uh, right now I'm at 12:30. I'm in a low point. I'm in desperation, but I see somebody else is at 5 o'clock. I see somebody else has gone through the trouble that I am, and I'm believing that same truth, that same love, that same forgiveness that somebody else is experiencing at that 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's the same for me.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think the, like, spirit of it's 5 o'clock somewhere is, so I'm going to live as if it's 5 o'clock now. Like, I'm gonna, uh, indulge the way I would indulge if it were 5 o'clock. But I think you kind of have given me new perspective, and we can kind of like reshape what is meant by that. And talk about, like, I think about that difference between happiness and joy, right? Like, happiness is things are good,
Mm,
so I'm happy. Joy, especially I think Christian joy, a joy rooted in Jesus Christ, is future oriented. Like, I can be joyful not because things are good, but because it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Because, like, 5 o'clock is coming. There is a time where things will be good, and I have a
mm,
hope. I have a trust in that, and so I can endure through, the post lunch blues, and make it to 5 o'clock. I can live through this hardship of my life and make it to the other side because I know it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I know that I'm going to get to that point. So yeah, that's good. I like that.
though there's pain in the night, joy comes in the morning.
It's Friday.
Sunday's coming.
Sunday's coming.
It's 12:30, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Last one. This is from the song. The second song that you knew was
Mm,
by Jimmy Buffett,
yes,
Cheeseburger
yes.
in Paradise. So it goes cheeseburger in paradise, heaven on earth with an onion slice. Not too particular, not too precise. I'm just a cheeseburger in paradise. Will
I
it
like
preach,
it.
Dave?
It'll preach. I think we all have particular expectations of what, uh like, the kingdom of God should look like. That it should fit the things that I want, the things that I believe and my desires. And it's different person to person, but it would be very precise. And I think that the kingdom of God is going to be different than what we would expect. All of us will be surprised in some way or another of what the kingdom of God looks like. And so I think, we have to kind of dial that back a little bit, and we have to accept Jesus, his message, not just where it fits our precise desires and measurements, but to just be able to accept, yeah, this is it, this is the kingdom of God, and I can enjoy this, even if it doesn't meet what I thought would be, the to use the cheeseburger analogy, the best meal ever. But, like, this cheeseburger is pretty dang good, and it's hitting the spot right now. So
Mm. He's not saying he's eating a cheeseburger, Dave. He's
he's
saying
saying
he
he
is
is.
he's just a cheeseburger in paradise. Do you have anything in particular about heaven that you're looking forward to? You're hopeful that you would like to see,
um,
or maybe past as you're a kid, what you imagined heaven to be like.
yeah, I mean, I think when I was younger, like, kind of being this, like, disembodied person that could like fly. Flying was like kind of the thing. Like, so I do hope that that is a thing that we get to do when we're in heaven. I hope I can fly.
When I was a kid, I always wanted, like, the light up shoes,
Hmm.
LA Lights or whatever they were,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and,
So
my Sunday school teacher told me that there would be no wants in heaven. So, you know,
yeah, they're
I
gonna
would
be
get
there. Yes,
I would have light up shoes in heaven.
I like it. I like
I
it.
think now I would like have you watched The Good Place?
No,
Alright, so spoilers, but I don't even know if this is what they do. But
it's fine.
my version of heaven now, which I'm prepared to be just a cheeseburger in paradise. I want you to know, Dave.
Okay.
I'm prepared to be a cheeseburger in paradise. But
Yes.
if I could project something that I would enjoy is getting to have like a time travel aspect of
Mm,
heaven where I could go to any point in history and kind of see what it was like
yeah.
and live it, see what the stories in the Bible, how they looked, what Jesus looked like, his miracles, follow him around, go to, you know, the founding fathers and sit in to them, arguing over the Declaration of Independence, like, and just kind of go and live a million different lives uh, throughout history. Uh, so, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to just be a cheeseburger in paradise.
Just be a cheeseburger in paradise. Yep.
Mhm. Well, thank you for joining us here in Margarita, Ville. I'm sorry, we will have to get to uh, the gospel according to venture capitalism, so that you can use
Yes,
all that
please.
Warren Buffett
I
knowledge,
the hours I spend studying for Warren Buffett.
right? So that that's not wasted. And thank you all for joining us, for wearing your flip flops, and your crop tops. I forget how the song goes, but for joining us in this gospel according to. Remember to follow us on all social media platforms that have existed or ever existed. We do giveaways on our Instagram. There's extra things, there's ways for you to interact with us, to tell us feedback of what you would have chosen, of how you would have preached these things, of something that we might have missed. If there's a rebuke, something that we did wrong, that you can message us so that we can look at those things, share those things. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, X, YouTube, or you can just find some quotes that we scratched into a palm tree. And find us at TGAT Podcast. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for telling people about the gospel according to, sharing it with your family, friends. If you borrow someone's phone, if your family member gives you their phone to look at a picture, just click on the Spotify, click on Apple Podcasts, and just subscribe to us. Give us a quick 5-star on there. If you see a guy wearing a Hawaiian shirt in the middle of December, he might be a parrot head, and just
Mhm.
tell him about this episode. He
Yeah,
might not have found it. He might want to listen to this. So, actually, if you see anybody in Hawaiian shirt, tell them about the gospel according to Jimmy Buffett.
do it. You can also send us a mailbag question on any of those socials by emailing tgatpod@gmail.com, or by just putting a message in a bottle and sending it out to sea, and it'll float to our shores, I'm sure. And we'll be happy to answer that question. Make sure that you're doing your part in obeying the Great Commission by helping us spread the gospel
Dot, dot, dot.
according to podcast. One great way to do that is leaving a 5-star rating and review on your phone, somebody else's phone. It's free, it's easy, not a big time commitment. Uh,
While you're laying in a hammock, you know,
yep, yeah, on the beach while you're drinking a margarita. You don't get too many margaritas in you. We want to keep it clean and appropriate. But uh, we did get a review recently from SEM1030, SEM1030.
how many stars did
And
they give us?
now you might be, we've been asking for 5-star ratings and we appreciate all of them, but it's going to be hard to outdo SEM1030, who the subject of their review is 5 billion stars. That's billion with a B. They say such a unique and funny podcast. I feel like I'm hanging out with these guys and it's a conversation, not a lesson. Well, thank you, Sam 1030, for hanging out with us today. You can hang out with us every week on your favorite Hump Day podcast.
Sem 10:30, but it's Sem 5 o'clock
Clock
somewhere.
somewhere, yes. Uh, Leave your own 5-star rating and review, and we will read it next week on your favorite Hump Day podcast. This is the gospel according to Jimmy
Jimmy
Buffett,
Buffett.
Warren Buffett's cooler brother. But what does that have to do with Warren Buffett?
Oh, no, 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 no. We're doing Jimmy Buffett today.
Oh, I have prepared all of. I'm ready to talk about Berkshire Hathaway.
Dave, you wanna play a game?
Of course I do. Is it a drinking game?